Multiverse of Color it's basically a rebrand of the Marvel Report, kind of folding in more DC content, whereas before it was like Marvel to Star Wars. So he brought me on to kind of be the head of the comics division. I don't know, but I'm here to talk to you guys because I'm really excited about the Milestone Initiative being brought back. I know you guys had the summit and the workshops. How was that for you guys? Kind of want to start with Jordan, with you.
Okay. Yeah, it was great. I mean, overall, the initiative was fantastic, and I think for a lot of us, comics is typically a place that feels like you're just grinding on your own and doing your own thing, trying to figure out how to make those next steps. And this was great because, it was kind of furthering that, but also at the same time introducing us to each other and giving us those tools and those resources so that, while you're on this journey, it doesn't really feel like you're doing it by yourself anymore. You have a lot of people to rely on, a lot of other people's experiences, and a lot of opportunities to collaborate with each other. I just kind of feel like you're part of, a larger family now, the DC family, the Milestone family, but also our own little initiative family that we've created. So I think, the summit was great because we got to see each other in person, which was terrific. And, just coming out of that, I personally, I felt very charged up and excited to really, get back into not just making comics, but, having those opportunities here and there at DC to really, take a stab at some of these characters, specifically these Milestone characters.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Jarod?
Oh, yeah, the initiative was great. I always like to tell people most of my life, my comic book fandom has kind of been an insular solo thing. I haven't really necessarily had a lot of friends, been to a lot of Comic Cons. So meeting these guys the first time, and lady, sorry, Andrea, meeting everybody the first time was the first time I really felt like I had a group of people that were friends that I could connect with on a level about a passion I had ever since I was in third grade. And so that was pretty cool. And then that was my first, I had a graphic novel out before then, but that was really my first introduction to anything about comic books on a professional side too. And I think they pulled out all the stops. We had a COVID scare during there. And so they had to rearrange things a little bit. I thought their talent relations team handled that excellent. And we got to see the DC Comics offices before they closed down and moved. And that was pretty special. I always had my mind back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, you think about how bustling they would have been. So just being able to at least see it right before they moved out, that was just beautiful.
That's dope. Andrea, what about you?
Oh, first of all, thank you for pronouncing my name the way that my family does. It's really touches me. Thank you. It was tremendous. I think the way that the program was structured, it was really designed, in such a way where they would be equipping all of the, artists and writers with all the tools that they would need to succeed in terms of really understanding, their craft better, learning different ways to kind of approach storytelling, but also kind of the professional business side. We learned a lot about not only just production and what editors are looking for, but just kind of seeing the pipeline in terms of oh, hey, here's where they get paper, and here's how, production needs to work around things these shipping complications and stuff. So there's a whole lot of ways in which I feel like my eyes were opened in terms of how comics, the business works. And it was just incredibly empowering just to have that experience. And, just like what Jarod and Jordan mentioned, it was just really special to have these 10 weeks of classes together through the Kobalt School and get to know each other's creative sensibilities and, being able to kind of build that camaraderie. And then coming together at the summit was just really special because, like they mentioned as well, comics really feels like such a isolating craft to do. It's a profession of freelancers, more or less. And so to kind of know oh, hey, everyone here, they're all doing what I do. They all love the same characters I love. It's, we really bonded over that. And we're a big familia, and it's fantastic. I really love that, anytime we have questions, we can all rely on each other and support each other as we rise through the ranks and we keep growing and building our careers.
Oh, love that. That's awesome.
Dorado, my captain right there.
Love that. What about you, Dorado?
I think everything's been said. I guess all that I could maybe follow up with is dream fulfillment, opportunity, and community. I think everybody has a story in our cohort that has tried to get into comics. I know me, in college, I emailed Marvel and DC, couldn't get any response or anything. And then, over a decade later, this program happens. And not only do I get an opportunity, I get training, I get community. I think it has been like the dream fulfillment, opportunity, and community. I think this talent book is going to be great. It's our first shot, but we know it's going to be a long road ahead. And we have, we're in our Discord daily, supporting each other, sharing work or inspiration. So I think to Jared's point, having that community, other people who love comics as much as you, who want to write them or draw them as much as you, is good to have that. That's something that I think many of us did not have prior to this program.
For sure. And definitely want to talk about the actual comic itself, because I read it a couple of times and I loved it. But you touched on the point I wanted to bring up. Compared to the 80s and 90s, do you still feel like, and obviously you guys weren't trying to work in the 80s and 90s, but when you hear stories from the industry veterans, is it harder or about the same or easier than it was for Black and brown artists and writers of color, creatives to break into the industry now than it was back then? Anyone can answer that. Yeah.
That's a tough question, and I don't like to be a super numbers guy, but I think when Ally gave their report, I think they said like 5% of writers are people of color, maybe like 3% of artists. It's something very low. I think Michael can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe the Ally website has that, but from what we understand, nothing has really changed, but as far as the actual percentage of diverse creatives. Times may be easier. I mean, it's definitely easier to get a fan base. Yeah. If you're an artist, you can post stuff every day and grow likes and get people's attention. But as far as the actual jobs, if the math is right, I'm quoting it right, it's definitely below 5 and below 3% for writers and artists of color. So that's what I would lean into as far as the difficulty or anything actually changing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably the biggest difference now, though, is that, the internet, it can go both ways. It's a great thing. It's a terrible thing. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. But, with the advent of Kickstarter and crowdfunding, all of these different conventions and things like that, I mean, you see a lot of different people who just were tired of waiting. I mean, that was the story of Milestone, is people were tired of waiting. And so they went and they built their own comics company. And I think a lot of people are doing that on smaller levels, but are still doing work that is, important, and the internet makes it easier to access it. But still in terms of maybe larger companies and things like that, like there's still a ways to go. But it is great to see and look around at all these different people. Stuff like Wash Day Diary, stuff like Upgrade Soul, stuff like even like Bitterroot over at Image. Like there's opportunities for people to do all kinds of cool things. So I think, even though the numbers sadly still may not reflect, what we're looking for, it's probably still better in some senses, just in terms of like, the chances to really break through big and do some cool stuff.
Yeah, the amount of opportunities have increased, especially with people. And you guys have brought it up, like you guys have built your own community. And I think that's just kind of a trend now, is people are relying on their community and their villages to help each other out and not wait for bigger corporations to give them a chance. I think that's dope. And it is how Milestone was started. So I thought that was, I think the story continues, and I think that's awesome. Especially since you guys all got this opportunity. I know you guys had to get pitches, especially the writers had to write pitches. How did you guys come up with your pitches?
Sure, go ahead.
They sent us a Milestone compendium. I had to catch up on a lot of the history of Milestone because I read them back in the 90s, but that was a long time ago. And then I hunted down some back issues on my own, and I found a character in Blood Syndicate near the end of the run back in the 90s. And he was kind of a throwaway character. And so one of the things about working in comics that always seemed interesting to me would be able to take these characters that didn't really have a lot of attention and love and try to recreate them for modern times. And the character's name was Soulbreaker. He was a Blood Syndicate villain. I just thought because he was magic and technology, that'd be a great fit to go against a character like Hardware. And that's pretty much it. Outside of that, it was just reading all the stories and jotting down ideas as they came to me.
Cool. Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you about Soulbreaker. That was one of my favorite stories. Makings of You was actually pretty cool. What made you decide to choose, since Hardware is so tech heavy, why did you go for a mentally focused villain like Soulbreaker, that speaks in we and apparently is Haitian? I know we got the little tease at the end. What made you kind of decide to make that decision for that character?
Just reading the original story seemed like he'd be a better fit for a character like Hardware than he really was for Blood Syndicate. He had the whole science and technology-based element. And then you take a character like Curtis, who is always prepared, I think. And, I think people, this might be my own theory, but I think people that tend to have that level of preparation does come from a little bit of fear. And so it'd be a little interesting to explore what it means for a character like that to find something that he couldn't prepare for, and just see where it landed. So,
facts. How does that kind of tie into a little bit of Black paranoia? Like, everybody who's grown up Black in America has I don't have to tell you guys that. How does that tie into Hardware? Like, he's got to be over prepared. Like, that's kind of for me, I'm an anxious person. And I'm overly prepared. Like, I were overly prepared for this. Like, just making sure that you don't mess up at even slightest. Like, I think that kind of came through with Hardware. And talk to me through that, like how you kind of made that decision, specifically for Curtis.
It's kind of how you said. That's how, especially once we achieve to a certain level, we're always kind of taught that you have to work twice as hard as the next person. You have to be twice as good as the next person. And so that's kind of already embedded in a lot of us. We know if we get these opportunities, we can't just do a good job. We have to do an absolutely amazing job, or we might lose that opportunity. And so, like I say, I think a character like Curtis, that's something that he lives with. And if you think about the 2-page story that kind of reiterates through his run, through the old run that Dwayne McDuffie did, and even the modern run with the Parakeet story, just the idea that he was always afraid of crashing over and over to that glass ceiling. I think that was just so relatable. I felt that way my whole life, especially trying to get into comics, right? With the numbers that Dorado put out, 5%, 3%, like there's definitely a glass ceiling that you can see. And it's very, like, I started trying to pitch comic books in the 90s when they used to actually take just like stories. You'd just be able to pitch Marvel and you never heard back. You wouldn't even, sometimes even get a reply letter. And so it's just, and there wasn't a lot of, being from Detroit, we didn't really have a lot of major Comic Cons and things like that. So I always felt kind of boxed in and didn't really understand back then, pre-internet, well, not pre-internet, but the way the internet is now.
Right. Social media.
Like, how to even tap in and find a community like that. So that's it. It was just like Curtis has always been a pretty relatable character to me, even back in the 90s. It's just somebody that I know a lot of Black men and women that feel that way. So I thought that was just something to tap into and something that would be relatable and that people would understand. And something like.
Love that. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the family values, Jordan. Love that you chose to focus on the family throughout the years, and not just Virgil. I know a lot of people are excited that Virgil's back and Static is back, but my favorite part about Static is his family and how strong they are, and his sister and their actual real brotherly sister friend relationship. So what made you make the decision to really focus on the family versus just Static's normal adventures?
Yeah, well, I think exactly what you said. We've seen a lot, right, of Static, and focusing specifically on him and all of his adventures. Even now, like, I love the run that Vita and Nicholas are doing, and I think that when they revealed his identity, and that I saw an opportunity to kind of have a situation that you don't necessarily always see, because I think a lot of times with specifically the younger heroes, it is a game of like, well, mom and dad can't know, and like, all these other people can't know, and like I gotta like keep my identity secret in a way that feels more organic than, say, like, Superman or like some other people, where it's just like, one, it's just glasses, we know it's you, but like also there's that anxiety of being a teenager and kind of feeling like you got to do this on your own, and so having his family behind him to support him, I thought would be interesting. But then also, like, I mean, I can only imagine, the stress of being a parent to a Black child, like them going out in the world, no matter what age they are, no matter what they're doing, like you never know, right? So imagine if they are a superhero, and imagine if they do probably have to interact with the police on a regular basis, and like all these other things that are going to happen to them, where I think the Hawkins family are great because, you have a wide range of like between mom and dad, like their experiences and their careers and, all of the ways that they would probably approach trying to parent this child. And then they also have, their daughter who is like, going to med school and she's got her own thing going on and like, trying to balance that out. And then, that brother-sister relationship. I have an older sister. If I had powers, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like she would be like jealous or like hated on, but it's that power dynamic, right? Of like, you're supposed to look up to me. I'm the one in control here. Like now, all of a sudden, not only are you like a superhero, but like I don't really know how to relate to you in that way. And so, I wanted to really explore what it would be like for everybody in the family to kind of come to grips with, okay, Virgil's a superhero now. Like he's got, superpowers, but also like, what does that mean for our family? Like, how are we going to support him? But also like, it's kind of scary, right? Because we don't know what could happen to him.
100%. I think it's cool too because I think like some of the more other prominent Black superheroes that are Virgil's age, Duke Thomas, Wallace West, their families are kind of a mess, for lack of a better term, and they've been kind of adopted by other families. And I think it's important to really showcase, the Hawkins family being a unit and being supportive of him because we don't really see that a lot, especially the Black family unit in comics. So I appreciate that.
Cinema or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So Dorado, I want to talk to you real quick before we go to the artist. You're my brother's keeper. Loved this story. What made you decide to choose Ebon for this specifically?
They gave us a compendium. I was also a huge fan of Static Shock, and I was, seeing the hints of Static Season 1 that Ebon was gonna be in the new Dakota 2.0. So I was like, I just wanted to shoot my shot and see if I could have access to him because at that point he hadn't made his debut in Season 1 yet, but he's one of my favorite characters. And the reason I chose him is because there aren't Black superhero villains in comics. Like whether Marvel, DC, there are very few. And if they are, they're either throwaway villains or we never really get a true understanding of who they are and why they are. So I want to kind of take on that challenge and show a villain and show that there's a moral compass and there's empathy and that he's not a villain just to be bad, but there is some serious concerns on why he is the way he is. Mm-hmm. And also just wanted to just explore that mindset of, what do you do if you run into somebody else, another brother who was in the same situation as you, and what would you do for your younger sibling? And I wanted to kind of put Ebon in a position where he's not a villain, but he's not also an anti-hero either. He's walking this path of I'm trying to save my family and I'll do anything I can, but I might help some people along the way.
Right. He starts with, I'm here for me and mine. That's it. I'm not, and then by the end of it, it's like, all right. So I think it shows like a complexity. Not everyone is going to be good or bad, hero, anti-hero, villain. Like we're all complex. Like, and it.
You said it better than me.
No, I completely get you. I love that. I love that story and the fact that, throughout the entire Dakotaverse, we're grappling with the fact that the cops are the reason and using experimental weapons are the reason why these kids have powers now, and which is a whole heavy topic to even like touch upon, which I do want to ask, but I want to talk to Andrea first. Patria y Vida, why? I'm Puerto Rican, just my mother's Puerto Rican, so I know my family, I know how to pronounce in the way it should be, but I love the art that you did for this issue. I love I don't know how much you guys, I don't know the exact process between pencils, inks, and colors, but I do appreciate that it was the Cuban people shown an array of color, because there are white Cubans, brown Cubans, Black Cubans, and love that. How was your process, and how was your wow, I can't talk right now, my bad. How was your experience with the process of drawing for this story?
Let's see. Well, first off, I think it really helped, getting to hit it off with Julio Anta, the writer I work with. We really had a couple conversations, just kind of getting to know each other because we both have very different backgrounds, being Latina, and growing up Latina Americans. He's Cuban, I'm Mexican, and the very different experiences we've had. And so, one thing that was something we connected about right away was that we're both really passionate about telling stories that cover the intersection of Latina identity and the American experience, and being able able to kind of offer that representation that we often saw was lacking in comics growing up. So that definitely led a lot to kind of our, I think definitely his thoughts about, telling the story Patria y Vida about Tech9, going into, Cuba and helping this hacker, empower, this kind of, rebellion in our country. So I think one of the things that we often talked about as well was that we both find it very important to show Latinidad as being as diverse as it is, because, we come in all these, wide array of, colors and backgrounds. And it's like, there's no one way to be Latina. Like, we very intentionally designed one of our main characters, Maria Teresa, to be Afro-Cuban. So that was very important. And we really wanted to make sure that we, showed that, this protest that this story happens about, like it's based on the protest that happened in the summer of 2021 in Cuba about, there was a lot of authoritarianism, curbs on civil liberties, the government was having trouble provide for food and medicine during COVID, all these things. During that time in the protest footage that the news would capture, you would see that diverse intersection of Cubanos, all walks of life and ages, different age ranges too. So I think it's very important that, our media, art, film, television, comics, especially, like that they hold a mirror to the world that we live in and they show, what we experience and what we've seen for ourselves. So that was something that was really important to us. And, we kind of went a lot back and forth in kind of creating that visual context of showing this is the world and this is, what we see and experience.
100%. So. Love that, especially with the focus on, making the Maria Teresa Afro-Cubano. There's kind of a tussle of like who can claim, being Latino. And so I totally, absolutely love that. Did you guys face any pushback or any kind of, because Cuba's touchy in general when it comes to America. There's a specific language called Mr. American Imperialist, which I thought was great. But was there any pushback? Do you have any struggles with like trying to tell a story that in the midst of it still being a touchy subject with, American politics?
No, that's a really good question. I don't know that there was it a lot of, I guess like the most important piece of advice that Julia and I were given was that, we tried to be very respectful of what's happening at the same time. And, that we tried to, focus on, these characters in the story and kind of build out from there. We're, trying to show, this story from a lens of, yes, it's Tech9, but the focus isn't Tech9 specifically. This focus is, not about him being in the spotlight. It's about how he goes in and he, it serves as an ally. And, sometimes I think one of the most empowering and most important ways that you can be a hero is by, creating a safe space for a person who has the skills, the knowledge, the expertise, they can just do their thing, the thing that they, rock at and they can do to help their own communities. So I think that that's really special to this story. And, aside from, that kind of, that tricky kind of minefield that is talking about in social political, I think that, comics has this really powerful ability to transcend some of that and saying, hey, superheroes, they can, not only come from all over, but they can also kind of bring to the forefront the hero in us. Yeah. Heroes can see the heroic nature and abilities of everyone. And that's what I love about this story. It's kind of complicated with like you said, all these political things, but I think at the same time in the story, you see, Tech9 observing what's going on in Cuba and how that relates to his time in the service in Sadaka and the Big Bang Theory. He sees that there's these parallels between oppressive government forces. So, there's a through line, but there's also like, trying to focus on characters and the way in which, heroes can be empowering.
Absolutely. Especially wanted to talk about your guys' opinion on and how you guys feel about the way the Dakotaverse 2.0 was kind of created. This version was because the cops were using untested experimental tear gas, I think, on protesters. A lot of them were students. I think most of them are students. How does that shape what you guys are doing, how you guys are creating what you guys think, how you guys kind of create the world that you guys are creating with your perspective, plus the world that they've built? And how does that reflect our reality? Since considering, cops have been doing that to protesters in reality. So I kind of want to know your guys' thoughts on that. Either one of you can start.
You want to go first, Captain, or up to you? You're my captain.
That's right. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, one thing that always bears very close to mind is that thinking, was it Dennis Cowan I think he's often said that, like, Milestone has always been about reflecting the present. And it's always been about, showing, the world as it is. And so, that was like true when the comics first came out in 93 and then on. And so I think it's, it speaks a lot to the importance of comics being a mirror to reflect, the world that we live in, especially, thinking about the importance of comics being able to reflect a reality that maybe a lot of, the mainstream culture, doesn't really understand. Mm-hmm. So, understanding things from the Black American experience, Latina experience, Asian American experience. I think it's really important that, there's this avenue to kind of tell stories from those perspectives. And so I think it's brilliant the way that Milestone 2.0 has launched. Vita Ayala was just, she just did such a, they did such a fantastic job in centering it in these modern times, because yes, there's always been happening, but I think that choosing to relaunch this story in such a pivotal moment in recent history that many people, bear in mind, I think it was really a very smart way to, bring people back, capture people's attention and bring them into the fold of what this universe is about. Having that as a ground zero, and then having, the rest of these, Milestone heroes kind of, their experiences surrounding that. Like, I think it's just a terrific way that, they've all been gathered together because of this one major event. So I think that it's very important that comics are doing this, and I think it's really brilliant how it's centered on something modern, because again, reflecting reality is, important. It's never been about nostalgia. That's right. Something Dennis has said. Not in the nostalgia business. We're about the now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, I love that, especially because nostalgia is often not for us. So I guess
exactly. Yeah.
Now you about you, Jarod.
Yep, I agree with everything Andrea said. It's pretty important that it's reflective of what's going on now. I think about in the 90s, would it being based on gang violence, and movies like Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society were kind of new to the zeitgeist, then that had a certain effect for its time then. But I think if they would have tried to maintain that same thing for now, it wouldn't have had the same appeal or even the same resonance as it would to make it about police brutality or issues that are more prevalent in I shouldn't say more prevalent, because they've always been prevalent, but there's more of an awareness of it now. And I think that was actually a stroke of genius to pay homage to what went before, but also to update a little bit. So
yeah, definitely. And I think you make a great point, because I actually reread the the original Static run, and there was a story where his friend Rick came out as gay, and there was this whole thing. I was like, man, if this story has been done now, this is crazy. It's been, I can't believe it's been 20 years since the 90s. I feel old. But it's those kinds of stories that feel dated, but that was the moment. That's how kids were back in the 90s. Tolerance and things like that. We had to learn, and some of us had to learn it. Some of us had to figure out the nuance of that, and learning, seeing Virgil learn that is great. Is there a version of that we can see Virgil and his friends going through now? Obviously kids are a lot more tolerant now than we were back in the day, but is there something like that now? I know we're struggling with obviously the anti-trans bills going across the country, things like immigration, anti-immigration, a lot of heightened xenophobia, things like that. Are there stories that we can tell now, that you guys can tell now, that reflect that similar kind of struggle, I guess, that the kids were going through?
I think so. I think people are always marginalized. So you can always kind of tap into that same thing. Back then, like you say, there wasn't as big an understanding of homosexuality amongst the youth. And to think about, they gave that character, I can't remember his name, but they gave him the fits for 2 years over being gay. Yeah. I was like, oh my goodness. was like, they went all right. And so like you say, so like the trans issue now, immigration, there's a lot of issues now that I think can reflect that same marginalization that people felt back then. And you just got to update it for the modern time. It'll be interesting to see, honestly, if Milestone 2.0 or Dakota Universe 2.0 gets around to talking about some of those things in depth and spending the time that they did back in the day. Now, I do realize it's kind of like, it's really just I think there's a better understanding amongst people over certain issues when it comes to sensitivity.
For sure.
And things like that. So it'd be pretty interesting to see them taking on.
Definitely. Hi, Dorado. How you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. They threw it. They knew I had a 9 o'clock with you guys, so they threw it 8:30. I'm like, you guys are getting real close. I got dreams, man. I got dreams.
Totally understandable.
That beard's looking amazing, sir.
Right?
Right?
Right. And whatever your beard oil is, looking good.
I
was just talking to them about how we just got on the first question about the Dakotaverse and how it was created, in the fact that cops using untested tear gas on protesters, and how that kind of ignited this new modern universe, and how we're telling stories within that universe. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that and how the new Dakotaverse was created.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because I saw some people loved it and some people hated it. So yeah, it was interesting. And then, but as I learned more about storytelling and just adapting things, like everything that works in comics doesn't work in TV and doesn't work in film. So like origin things have to be changed. And as we know, they really want to bring Milestone back and, make it more acceptable, not more acceptable, but more, what's what I'm looking for? More encompassing of today's generation, right? They want the fans from the 90s, but also the youth is more concerned with protest and gang violence, which kind of shows an advancement in our culture, society, that we're not afraid of gang wars anymore. We're more afraid of protest and police. But yeah, it didn't bother me at all. To me, it was the crux of them getting their powers was the same. Like there was a gas that should not have been used. It was used and people got power. So it didn't bother me at all, but I did remember seeing fans being torn about it. But to me, it's like, is the storytelling good? And probably if they had left the origins the same, I don't know if it would hit us as close to home. Like, I remember me being a kid more so, I'm from LA or from Inglewood, like Inglewood always up to no good. There were a lot of, gangs around me growing up. So I think then that was the thing. But I think if I'm a kid now, I'm probably more scared of the police than I am of
Definitely. You had said something, and it was such a good point, and I wanted to nope, lost it again. Anyway, great point. I do think, oh no, I got it again. How much do you guys pay attention to what the fans are saying, and how does that tie into like what you guys do? Curious about that.
I like to be aware and be knowledgeable. I think from my career in advertising that, if you chase awards or just constantly read about what's in Ad Age or the blog, like it'll kind of dilute or hurt your creativity or you could, that's kind of like for me, it's like you don't want to read too much, but you want to be aware, right? You want to be aware that fans are outraged, or fans are upset, or they're really excited about something. But why are they so excited? So I like to be informed, but I try not to go down too far down that rabbit hole because it can be a dark place.
I kind of took a big break from social media this year. It was a little tough. Just a lot of the fan arguments. I appreciate them, understand the passion, but it kind of, maybe it's just the people I follow. It kind of was just denigrating into like woke versus anti-woke and just a whole bunch of terminology I don't think people fully understand. So with that kind of level of vitriol, I was like, I think I just need to take a break, So I do want to get back on there because taking a break also means I haven't been able to see these wonderful people as much. I haven't been on the Discord, or haven't been as prevalent or on Twitter as much or Instagram as much, so I'm missing out on things. But I do think it's important to get fan feedback when the criticism is well thought out and it's not agenda-based. But how do you get through that? How do you get through finding out what's agenda-based or which is like legit criticism? So, I don't know. I guess I'm 50-50 on it. Like, I've been reading comic books for, I don't even know how old I am right now. Oh, 45.
That's how you know you've read a long time.
Right, for like 37 years or something like that.
Wow.
And so, I've never seen the discourse. There's always been passion, but I've never seen this level, like I say, of anger over certain things. Even thinking about, I got back on there to go tell our cohort member Morgan, congratulations on Cyborg. I was like, oh, let me go look this up so I can tell him what's up. And I just read a few comments, and it was just it's crazy out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy world out there. So
Like, yeah, there's some
no,
stuff.
not about him. I just reading some of the stuff in my feed because I've
roll my sleeves.
We might have to ride.
It was super complimentary of like, what I've seen on my timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's just a credit.
No. Morgan's getting a lot of love. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I love you guys, so I'll go on there.
I know he's like ready.
I'm thrilled for him. Yeah.
Yeah, the Cyber book is amazing. Yeah. Andrea, do you have anything to add on that?
I absolutely agree with what Rado and Jarod are saying, that there's, with the internet, there's so much noise to sift through to get to like feedback and vital criticisms. But I think it's important to take the time to be cognizant of what people are saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think as a creator, as a storyteller, I think that it's also was it important to stay true to yourself and the message and the ideas that you want to convey, through writing, visually. I think it's, important to kind of find a really good balance of those two. And that's hard. That's hard because social media being like this, place that's not always the best for your mental health and just, psyche all the time, it can be really challenging. So I think it's, it's important to find a balance, but, take time to also take care of yourself because, there are a lot of, complicated things and, a lot of just incendiary things you'll find online. But I think it's, important to kind of keep getting that feedback so that you can build yourself, grow as an artist and grow in, storytelling and your craft.
Yes, absolutely. I do. I to your point about Jarod, about the woke, anti-woke, there's some people who I think have a frustration that sometimes is valid, but they're sometimes it's wrapped up in something that is not. They're getting whipped up by someone else's anger, and I often see like the legacy question of where a lot of our Black heroes are legacy heroes that have taken on the mantle from a white hero, and people are like, we need more of that, and I'm like, well, Milestone is here, and it's just like this is the exact kind of thing that we, if that's what you're annoyed about, then this is the stuff that's for you. So I do find that discourse a little bit interesting. And it can get toxic. So I understand staying away from it a little bit. So I noticed you calling her Captain. Why do you call her Captain, if you don't mind me asking?
Warner Brothers did a virtual holiday party for us, and she was the captain of our team.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
She did an excellent job, so she is now my captain in my heart.
Oh,
thank you. I appreciate you.
I love that. That's cute.
Yeah.
So what other stories would you guys want to tell in this universe? And then what would you want to tell outside of the Milestone universe within DC?
That's a good question.
I would love to write static. I've never written something. I chose the Ebon story, but and I think Vita and Nick are doing a great job. But I'd really like to do like an Ebon series, or just Ebon story, and just really dive into that character. As far as within Milestone Static or doing an Ebon story would be great. And then outside of Milestone, I did a story on Steel last month for Action Comics, and I've got 2 more coming out. So I would love to do more Steel. But I'm a huge Wallace West fan, and so did a Kid Flash story earlier this year. And then I love Batwing. They kind of replaced my boy with Luke. But if Batwing ever comes back or is ever available again, I'd like to make sure he gets his due justice.
Yes. Are you talking about the original Batwing? Dave? Wait.
That one is fine, but I was a fan of Luke.
Luke Fox, I got you.
David Zimwe.
Yeah.
He was great. Mm-hmm. But I think the reason they had him leave Africa is this whole nonviolent thing in it's not going to work.
It's not going to work, right.
But the Luke Fox era of Batwing, I thoroughly enjoyed. So that is my in Milestone, outside of Milestone, I will pass the torch.
I think I'd like to write more hardware. As a character that I never really thought about writing before until I had the opportunity to, I'm like, there's a lot of layers there to peel back. Especially with like the popularity of the manosphere and certain things now that I see online. It'd be interesting to kind of try to explore that through a character that would be considered a high value man. That'd be interesting. And Blood Syndicate, of course. That's probably my favorite Milestone thing of all time. So I'd love to do both of those. Outside of Milestone, Vixen, I would say would probably be my number one, just because I feel like there's certain things that never really been explored. Like, she owns her own modeling company. She's, it's just a lot of stuff that they don't go into. And I think there's a way you can go into pop culture with Vixen, and especially from a lens of like being Black through pop culture, that you could use her character for. It'd be interesting to explore. Martian Manhunter, who is probably one of my all-time favorite characters. Just a wealth of potential there for his power set. And then probably Blue and Gold, because I really like humor, and we don't get as many humor combos as we did when I was young. I'd like to do more of that.
I was like, maybe you guys can work together, because last time I saw Luke, he was with Vixen. They were on a date, a little cute.
I was excited. I was like, my boy is back.
I was like, okay.
He got a baddie.
I was like, she is. I think he's dating up, because she is. She's a baddie for sure. Yes, I love that.
He's technically a multi-billionaire.
Fair enough.
They got all the Wayne Foundation money right now.
Fair enough. Andrea, what about you?
Boy, Luke, some respect.
No disrespect here.
I wish they would have went through with him being the new Batman. I heard that might have been the original plan, and then it changed to the Jace thing. And I was like, I don't understand why they did that.
Him, Jace, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
He usurped our boy.
Yeah.
The whole Fox family could be explored a lot more. I genuinely enjoy them. Like, Tiffany Fox is so cute. Like, I genuinely enjoy their family a lot.
And then also, huge Signal fan.
Yeah.
I thought the Signal hasn't really been explored. If there's ever opportunity to explore the Signal, that would be high up on my list.
Agreed.
He's out. We see you out there, Michael.
I mean, it's good writing.
It is good writing.
No, he just my boy. I took him off the board and just went into this.
I know Luke has been appearing random, like he was in the Harley Quinn book for a little bit, like randomly. I was like, okay, sure, why not? I mean, we should see more Luke.
Where's Waldo?
Right.
Great.
Andrea, what about you?
Gosh, I really love, like within the Milestone universe, I really love Icon and Rocket. Like, I just love their dynamic. I love how well they complement each other, kind of like, the hopeful, protege, and like this kind of weathered, more sullen and, kind of grumpier guy. And like, I love that, they each help themselves to find things in each other. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of a lot of really fun opportunities to explore there. I love drawing. Just like, I like, drawing stories where you can, have a lot of fun action and, show, of course, really important messages, but also drop some like, nuggets of fun, humor, comedic moments in there. I really love, facial expressions. So I feel like that would be just rich for that. And also I feel like hardware would be really just an incredibly challenging, but just amazing opportunity to work on. I wasn't really familiar with hardware before, but like I've really been drawn to like his whole story and just the power of his anger and knowing like he's right and that, no matter what, he's gonna, just do what he can to like, set things straight. And, he's not willing to just, back down. Like I respect that, respect. As far as, I guess diving a little further into DC universe. So one of my, all-time favorite characters, which I will go on forever, is Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
Because like, he's Mexican. He's from El Paso, Texas. My family, both my mom and dad's families, like they're both from El Paso,
Nice.
Texas. Like growing up, I go there all the time, visit my abuelitos. So like, it's very near and dear to my heart. And like, I feel like like, this opportunity is for me. Like, I want to, draw these beautiful, places that I know by heart, and, just, show some love to the city of El Paso, especially considering that, in recent years, with immigration and just, crises, and also like, a lot of like domestic terrorism, stuff like that. I think it would be really healing, for the community there. So, just being able to take that on. But there's just, man, it's hard to name so many characters. DC just has such a rich, list. But I've really enjoyed, like all the Bat Family adventures, and it's just been really a blast. Just kind of like finding more characters and just learning about them. And, a lot of fun sandboxes to play in.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. DC has probably one of the more. Of the two, I won't name the other one, but I think it's more robust in my opinion. So okay, we still have some time. Good. What other? Okay, hold on. I wrote my questions down. Okay, I got that one. So, question about the Rocket Static thing. How do we feel about Rocket and Static having a romance? I know it's constantly teased back and forth. How do you guys feel? Would you write the story? Are you against it? How do you feel?
I liked it better in the day when he was chasing after her. He couldn't get any play, I got to say. But it would still be a very nice story to write and see what that would look like. I would definitely like to write something like that, but I think I prefer when he was kind of just chasing after her. She was like, "Come on, kid." Actually, are they doing a romantic interest? I've been a little bit out of the loop for the last couple months. Are they doing a romantic interest now with Rocket and?
One of the stories in the initiative has him kind of like, oh, we're on a date. She's like, we're not on a date. So and then they've like kind of like teased it before, but they have not gone forward ahead with it. Cause I don't think they've done a book to guess.
That sounds like Yasmin's story.
Yeah.
Or
she did.
It was a different.
They like played, Ashley Allen and Yasmin's story. Like they kind of played with that. So that's the newest one I read. It was like they were playing. And when I reread like the old stuff, that he was like really pushing for it a lot. And she was like, no, I'm good. And like,
it wasn't the Milestone.
I like it as a red herring. I like it as like a Batman, Wonder Woman thing. Like it's nice to play around with, but it's never. They both have actual people they need to be with. So I like it as like a playful thing, and I think I didn't appreciate when I was younger that like Rocket was like a teenage mother hero. I think I don't necessarily want that right now. But just the foreshadowing, the forethought that, Milestone thought to do that for Black women, I thought was special. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't want to erase that from the timeline. And I think I really liked how Young Justice brought that in. Very much. Like, I don't know. I'm a Flash guy, so I'm a big time. I'm like, well, if Static and her get together, then this doesn't happen. I started thinking about the different branches. So I'm like, I don't want to lose that timeline or lose that trajectory for her, but I like it as like a playful thing that, they have some interest, but they still have the people they're supposed to eventually be with.
Definitely.
I do miss the her being a teenage mom angle a little bit. It actually makes me think about what Milestone was able to get away with back in the 90s. Honestly, like some of the storylines, even between Blood Syndicate being gang members and the original powers coming from a gang fight, her being able to be pregnant. I wonder if stuff like that would fly in comic books today. If you would be able to do things like that today.
Stephanie Brown was a teen mom and they erased that. So I don't think that's something.
Really?
Yeah, she was like a very spoiler, yeah. And they got rid of that pretty early on. But I've noticed that like if they're young with kids, that those kids tend to get gone, but they're bringing it back.
Every superhero,
it's not. And sometimes we just gotta let them grow up, let them have families. It's okay. They don't have to die immediately. But I don't know. What do I know?
I think collectively, Bruce Wayne might be like the new best parent as far as what he tries to do with Damien. Like he actually cares.
Doesn't that honor really go to Alfred though? Let's be real. Like, gotta give some props to Alfred.
Fair. That's fair. That's fair. There's a village there.
Alfred's dead right now. Alfred's
true. Also true. I forgot about
Throwing out F in the chat.
R.I.P. Alfred.
Oh, one of my, okay, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I was like, I thought they were, Icon and Rocket had a little flirtation. It was a Milestone's 30th stories. Got it. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I see. I like this kind of conversation because like I kind of get your guys' thoughts and opinions on just more outside of Milestone in general. How much did you guys know about each other's stories and pitches while you guys were working in the workshop, or did you guys not know about the stories until after they were like kind of done already?
Still don't know everybody's story. At least for me.
Okay.
Some people were more open. Some people were more, quiet about theirs. So I've seen everybody's title.
Gotcha.
But I haven't got to read anybody else. Maybe somebody else has, but I haven't got to read anybody's story yet.
I read everyone's.
I didn't get to read everyone's. I haven't read Rado's. I read a good portion. We first got on the Discord. I know I read the initial scripts, but I haven't read the finished versions of a lot of things.
Okay.
So I read Jordan's initial script. I read Julio's initial script. The other Jarod and I think Jerome. I think those are the only people's scripts I read. Oh, and I can't forget Zipporah. Zipporah's story's crazy. I don't know if anybody had the Zipporah story's the same.
Her concept for her was crazy. I know. I remember reading her spill on that one. So I can't wait to see how she pulled it off.
Yeah. The script was pretty good. I don't know what changes she made from the initial.
Oh yeah,
draft,
the reality hopping one. Yeah. That one was cool. That one was really, really dope. I love the visuals.
I can tell that I know she wrote for video games, and that kind of gave me that feeling. I could tell that she writes for video games for the way that story worked together.
It was cool. The way that a lot of the stories were that were built into this Milestone showcase is actually incredible. Like you guys did a fantastic job. I honestly want to applaud you guys. I'm excited to see. When I was looking up, I saw that I seen that you were working on Action Comics, and I saw that what was it? I wrote it down. Jordan was working on. He's not here, but Jordan was working on Aquaman too. So like, it's cool to see you guys are like going to be out into the universe, and I'm excited to see more of your guys' work. Is there anything that you guys? I'm out of questions, but is there anything you guys want to add about your experience? What you're excited about? Anything in the future? Like anything you want to add?
Sure. Real quick, I realized I didn't get a chance to answer the the static and rocket romance thing. But I just want to chime in just real quick. Like I am not a fan of it just because I think it's really important to show more stories where it's like, oh hey, like a guy and a girl, like they can just be friends. Like not everything always has to be romantic. And I feel like that's kind of really shoved. I don't know. And especially, giving credit to like, the Rocket being pregnant storyline, like what was said already, like it's very forward thinking, very ahead of its time. And I think it's very important, like a story kind of showing like, oh, like a young woman like going through this and, especially exploring like, like Black motherhood and exploring, what it means, like all these responsibilities of being a parent on top of being a hero. So I think like I don't know, I feel like it'd be disappointing to take that from Rocket because I think that's really important and it's really shows a lot about, the way that Milestone is willing to push the envelope. And, I have a tremendous respect in terms of the way that they were challenging what was acceptable, what wasn't, acceptable. Right. So, yeah. And then in terms of like the story development, because you just asked, it's really interesting to hear Jarod and Dorado talk about, hearing story pitches, because it made me realize, how in dark maybe writers might be, because like in the, the penciling, the art classes, like I would see everyone's pages, we review everything together. So I've seen all of these stories from the very beginning, from thumbnails to, preliminary sketches, to the pencils, to the inks. Like I've seen like all these stages more or less, and it's been incredible to see like the development and seeing them come together and seeing all those edits take place. So I'm really so excited to see the final product because I just know like all the work and effort and all the changes that went into it. I think you'll definitely be really just amazed because everyone worked so hard on these stories, and it's just incredible, just the development of comics in real time, and just seeing it kind of happen like on a weekly basis. You can see those changes, you can see the growth, you can see the leveling up. It's phenomenal, and really everybody who's in the program, I'm so excited for what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing later, because like they're the ones to watch. I'm excited for everybody.
Love it, love that. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, just thank you for interviewing us not once but twice and making time.
Of course.
This is probably one of the most fun interviews we've had because like you're so youthful with us and having fun, having opinions. Like this has been really good.
Awesome. Yeah, this is like I love talking. I love comic books. So talking to you guys is like, this is for me. You guys are like my superheroes. So I'm obsessed with comic books, and so I'm excited to talk to you guys.
And yeah, I just agree with both my cohorts right here. This is great. You're a great interviewer, and the whole initiative was a pretty cool experience. Seeing people now getting work has definitely been inspirational. I haven't actually tried to get any work yet from any of the editors just because job's been pretty demanding. Young kid, I just didn't have a lot of space. I probably won't have a lot of space till after July.
Right.
But just seeing it, like Dorado, I read your Action Comic story, by the way. I know I ain't been in Discord. It was great. It was great, and I'm curious to see what you're doing with Mr. Terrific.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what this
I figured some people will figure out who it was.
Right. Wait, you're doing more. You're doing Mr. Terrific. You're doing more. Mr.
So at the end of Action Comics 1054 that came out last month, there's a hidden, anti-hero villain that's person in the shadows.
Yeah.
And we wanted to hit to be Mr. Terrific, and it's Mr. Terrific. So then next week, I think next week 1055 comes out.
Yeah.
I get to see Steel and Mr. Terrific kind of be on opposite sides.
Nice. That's interesting. I love that. How much is that going to do you know like about what's going on with Flash and like the kid his son coming back to life?
Flash?
Yeah. So Mr. Terrific's in the Flash right now, and they Granny Goodness stole the Flash's son, and then they found out that Granny had been stealing a lot of other kids, including Donna Troy's son, who died in the car crash in the 90s. Serdian, who was Garth's son, Aqualad's son, and then also Mr. Terrific's son, who died when his wife Jack Paula died in the car crash. Apparently, she had all of them, and so like now Michael Holt's like back with his son. So I don't know if that's gonna.
No,
that's
so
interesting.
I'm doing a setup for Michael Dorn Steel. So everything that I'm doing will set up Michael Dorn to a
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So,
right.
But I wanted to use Mr. Terrific to show how smart Steel is, because like Steel's an engineer, a genius, but he's never really got to shine or got to really show how smart he is. So I would one day I hope that he gets in the conversation of the Lex Luthors and Mr. Terrific's. Like I want him there. So that was the contention with Mr. Terrific.
Can't wait to read it. I'm excited.
Sure, appreciate it. And then Jared, you got a high standard, bro. So that makes you feel good.
Oh, I don't know. I got a high standard. I appreciate it. I'll take that compliment and I'll wear it.
I'm proud.
Well, thank you guys so much.